Honored. What a small world. My very first duty station was actually Adak, Alaska, which is a small island right out on the Aleutian chain. I was closer to Russia than I was to the mainland of the United States, and me being a city slicker, I'm like, you put me on a remote island, and with eagles and puffing birds, no trees, whales jumping out of the ocean. That was my exposure, and it was absolutely beautiful. And it allowed me to not, to further never take anything for granted, because everything came through barges. And here I am, 18 years old, and, you know, trying to figure this out. I've been stationed in Washington State, Whidbey Island, Washington, Brunswick, Maine, Oklahoma. What are Navy squadrons? Yeah, Navy squadrons that are in Oklahoma. Been to Pensacola, Jacksonville, San Diego, Virginia Beach. So those are the main places.
Wow, you got an education in more ways than one. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, good gracious. Absolutely. I've been over 27 different countries. I've been to 49 out of the 50 states. The only state I haven't been to is North Dakota, because it's off of I-70. But I've been to Hawaii.
Do you have any favorites?
As far as favorite states?
Or favorite places that you've been?
I really like Japan. I enjoyed Bahrain. Bahrain is a small country off the tip of Saudi Arabia. I love Curacao. That's an island in, you know, in the southern area, South America. Spain, they all had their amazing qualities. Germany, Newfoundland. So I enjoyed them all. In one way or the other, I absolutely enjoyed them all.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's hard to choose.
So this is just the green room conversation, and we're going to start in a minute here. So my uncle was a commander in the Navy, commander of a submarine, and they were in Tallahassee, they were in Pensacola for a little while, San Diego, and Hawaii. We felt really bad for them when they were in Hawaii. So, yes. Okay, well, we're going to get started here. And welcome everybody to Emerald Coast Women in Business. And this is August 18th, 2020. And this is going to be a little bit different format because we have a special guest, Jennifer Foxworthy. But to start with, Emerald Coast Women in Business was started because women do business differently than men. And here on the Emerald Coast, we even do business a little bit different than I think most places. And we wanted a place where we can make real connections and not a place where, you know, like we've all probably been to networking where they just throw business cards at you. Actually, I had intended on literally throwing business cards, but they're in the other room here. So, but I think we all know what we mean there. And we wanted to have real connections. And so, so anyway, my business is the sponsor of Emerald Coast Women in Business, and we provide a turnkey weight loss management system that is affordable and has a money-back guarantee. So if you or any of your clients are looking for something like that, let me know. Next, I want to bring up Nancy Gaskins, because we found, you know, with 2020, things have changed very quickly. And while I've been on Google Hangouts and Zoom for many years, now this is, you know, the main way that we're connecting with people. And so I want Nancy Gaskins to tell a little bit about what's going on, the Friday Lunch and Learn Zooms referral network, because we really want to have an opportunity to connect and really be of service and help one another, and, you know, and really so that we can all grow. So Nancy Gaskins, let us hear from you.
Thank you very much. Like you said, during COVID, there was basically two groups of people, those that survived and those who died, and those who are trying to pivot, and those who have been successful and who have not. And the ones that survived and thrived and are thriving right now are the ones that were able to pivot and do things a little bit differently. My name is Nancy Gaskins, and I specialize in small business development. And one of the things that I do is I help entrepreneurs discover creative ways to grow your business. I myself have had to learn to pivot, and I have pivoted in a huge way. Now I am predominantly online. And so what we're doing is we're leveraging a couple of different platforms here. We're leveraging referral partnership networks, virtual masterminds, virtual marketplaces, cooperative projects. Those are some ways that you can exponentially grow your business. And we do this, we have one main event, we have several, but our main event is called Lunch and Learn Zoom Fridays. And we meet every Friday from 11:30 to 1 Central Standard Time. And what we do here is this platform provides a virtual space to meet, mastermind, we do business together, we share tips, tools, we celebrate, we learn, we cooperate. And the most important aspect is we spend 1 hour helping you perfect your pitches and your promotions, so that when you go into these events, whether you're in line at the grocery store, whether you're at your kid's ball game, or in a professional networking place, you're going to be a pro, and it's going to help you do business much better than what you've done before. So I'd like to invite you. Debbie and Olivia are my co-hosts every Friday. Like I said, this is our premier event. It's free for the first 2 times. You can come, just check us out, see if it's a right fit for you. And again, that's Lunch and Learn Zoom Friday. You can find us online. Please come and be our guest. I think you're going to be really shocked at what you know and what you don't know, and how giving this group is, because we truly, our goal is to help you rise higher, go further, faster. Get on there and see what folks are saying about our group. Honestly, we've got now several hundred that attend off and on, and it's been really amazing. And thank you all for supporting. A lot of you here are on our tribe.
There you go. Thank you. And you know what, just a side note on that. And I want to welcome Olivia. Olivia is from Jacksonville, and she is the LinkedIn pro. And so at some point we'll want to have her come on and talk about LinkedIn. But like, and people, you know, it's really kind of amazing, because I attended a virtual meetup in Marketplace with Laurel Langmeyer. And this was like right as, you know, things were really happening. And so I decided to do another one. And I was like, I want to invite people, but I don't want to just invite everybody. I'm like, okay, you know, who needs a breakthrough? And I really prayed about that. And I only invited people, and Nancy Gaskins was one of them. And boy, did she take this and run with it. And it's kind of interesting, because even Emerald Coast Women in Business talked about it for a long time, and then finally launched it. And Nancy and I met many years ago, and talking about certain things, you know, helping with entrepreneurship and furthering that. And then it's like, it's amazing, like you're an overnight success, you know, 10 years in the making or whatever it is. So this is just the time. And I know we've got some new people on, and welcome. So the reason that I'm going to kind of switch gears here is we've had something that obviously rocked the community. And it's really kind of interesting, because, excuse me, I'm having somebody write my story, like for like the about page. And she noticed something about me that I hadn't really thought about. She says, Debbie, when you go through something, when you're hurt and you're healing and you find answers, or you're looking for answers, you share that with other people. And I hadn't really thought about that. It's like, you know, as I've gone through things, and I don't just keep it to myself, I want others to share in that. And so on the Friday Lunch and Learn Zoom thing, something I'm like, we need to have a speaker. We need to do something and really just kind of help with the healing and give hope. So I, you know, put it in the chat. Who knows somebody who could speak on domestic violence? And Jessica Koch from Maryland put it out right away. She goes, I have somebody. So, and so she connected me with Jennifer. But before Jennifer speaks, and I hear she's absolutely amazing, and I'm really looking forward to it, Peggy Brockman is going to speak a little bit about Vicki, and so I'll leave that up to her. Go ahead, Peggy.
Thanks, Debbie. Hello, everyone. For those that, and I think I know most of you on here, I'm Peggy Brockman. And Debbie asked me if I would just share some tonight about the tremendous loss that we've had in our community, and that many of us were very close to, and that is Vicki Edge, who was a part of this group. She was a part of many of our groups that we've been a part of. Yeah. And she was definitely an angel. That picture was so fitting because she was surely an angel on earth, and now she's earned her golden wings. As most of you have probably heard or know, Thursday a week ago, Vicki was brutally murdered by a gentleman that she met online and had been dating for a couple of months. And she was, you know, head over heels with him, and unfortunately he had lied quite a bit. You know, he kept telling her all these big promises and all, and it ended up he couldn't deliver on the promises, and so instead of just walking away, he chose to murder her. And it was such a shock to so many. I think we all have been touched by this, that knew Vicki in any form, and even people who didn't know Vicki have felt the pain and the shock of this loss, because she was such a contributor to our community. Vicki has the biggest heart of anyone I have ever known, and she literally would give you, if she didn't, it didn't matter if she only had $10 in her bank account, but somebody needed 40, she would go find $40 to give them. That's just who she was. She was always the one that brought stuff to meetings, and just the kind-hearted. I remember that when my husband was very ill back, I almost lost my husband back in April, and she came over and brought her famous banana bread that she loved to make. And so, you know, that's just, she just always showed up for all of us. And Christine, who's on the call with us tonight, Christine and Vicki were the closest of friends. And so Vicki, in April of this year, a mutual friend that she had met through one of the networking events, and had come to know, and really Vicki loved everyone that she met. And in April, she felt like that God had led her to step up and get tested to see if she would be a donor match for Kathy Houchins, because Kathy is in desperate need of a new kidney. She's been on dialysis for over a year now. And so Vicki, again, it was one of those things that she absolutely just felt like she was supposed to do this. And so she went and got tested. And sure enough, she was a 4 out of 5 match, which is a sibling match to Kathy for donating a kidney. And she was very excited about being able to do that, although she did it, and she kept it anonymous because she didn't want her family or her closest friends that didn't know to find out, because she didn't want anybody talking her out of it. And she was going into her season with the spa, so she was waiting until January they were doing the kidney transplant in January, because we also had to raise the money, and we had just launched a major fundraiser for Kathy for the kidney transplant fund to pay for both of their expenses to do that. And so Tuesday, a week ago, or I guess 2 weeks ago, yeah, 2 weeks ago, Christine called me, and Vicki had contacted her. She had some very disturbing news that day, in that she had gone for a colonoscopy and found out that she had stage 2 colon cancer. She had called the kidney transplant center, and they told her that unfortunately she would no longer be able to be a donor. So on Wednesday, Christine and Vicki called me, and we talked about it at length. And because Kathy is one of my closest friends, and so we knew that we had to tell Kathy. But Vicki was just, she was so worried about getting a donor for Kathy. And she just, I mean, that she spent her entire day Wednesday just, you know, going on about, well, you know, we've got to find another donor, and I'm going to help you find another donor. And all she was worried about was that she was not going to be able to donate that kidney any longer, and she was going to find somebody. And so that afternoon we shared with Kathy. I went to Kathy's house, and Vicki and I were, I had Vicki on the phone, and so we told Kathy the news. And even later into Wednesday evening, she and I were back and forth, and she was just so concerned about finding another donor for Kathy, and helping with the fundraiser and all of that. And then unfortunately on Thursday morning, or her boyfriend had talked her into staying at his house Wednesday night, and then on Thursday morning, before she could leave, he brutally murdered her. So they didn't find her until Friday evening, and so it was late Friday night before anybody really knew anything. And I guess, Christine, it was Saturday morning before we found out, and early first thing Saturday morning. But it's been a brutal week because it was such a senseless thing. So I wanted to share with those of you, many of you had offered to help with the fundraiser for the kidney transplant by donating baskets. We're going to be doing an online auction. We are now in search of both a donor and the funds to pay for that. We're continuing on with the fundraisers because that's what Vicki would have wanted us to do, and we want to be ready so that when a donor steps up, that that can happen immediately instead of having to wait. And because had that been able to happen immediately, this story may have turned out very different. And so many things there. So if anyone is interested in donating to the giving an auction item, we would love that. If and it can be as small or as big as you want. We can group it with some other stuff if it's smaller. That would be great. We're doing the online auction on October the 10th. Another thing that Vicki was passionate about was she helped our organization, United for a Good Cause, raise money for Hope Squad Suicide Prevention Program. So her group that from her class reunion group, that's what they're donating to. They've set up a donation. I set up a donation link for them, and they're donating to Hope Squad on her behalf in her memory. And so there are many opportunities to give back. And what I would just ask everyone to think about and remember, that we all need to be more like Vicki. Vicki leaves a huge legacy of giving, of generosity, and of kindness. And if we all lived the way that Vicki did in that manner on a daily basis, we would all be far better people as a result of it. We can't bring her back, but we can continue her legacy. And that's what I challenge everyone to think about on a daily basis and go forward with. So, Christine, thank you for everything that you're doing on Vicki's behalf, and continue to do as well, because I know this has been really hard with you, but on you, because you and Vicki were the best of friends. So thank you for that.
Peggy, can you please put the blood types that are most likely to be a candidate in our chat, so that if anybody knows anybody for Kathy's donation?
Yes, it's A positive or O, or A or O. So
And feel free to, if you would, like either email or post on Emerald Coast Women in Business, and we will continue to put the word out. And that was very beautiful, Peggy. Thank you for sharing. And I'm going to say this anyway. So Christine, this morning, we were on the networking, and she said what's really getting her through this is her 3-month-old little granddaughter, right? And grandson. Okay. I have a 3-month-old granddaughter, so I know what those snuggles are like. And so as soon as you mentioned that, like, you know, just having that little baby to hold, and like that, just, you know, that's the world. That's really what we're all about. So anyway, I'm going to take a deep breath here. So we have an amazing speaker, Jennifer Foxworthy, and I'm going to have some information on my other computer. And so Jennifer, and some of you in the beginning, she's retired Navy, motivational speaker, author, corporate trainer, and blogger. And she's founder of CEO of Inspirationally Speaking, and also Unstoppable You Ministries. And so I can tell she's really got a heart for people. So today it's about the journey of a thriver, finding purpose after pain. And when I saw that, that just really hit me. And so to be better prepared to be a prisoner of war than to deal with domestic violence. Jennifer openly shares her experience of surviving partner abuse during her military career. She encourages us not just to survive, but thrive. Develop strategies to boost self-esteem and self-worth. Understand the importance of healing after a traumatic relationship. And Jennifer, thank you so much for speaking. And I know this was very last minute, and we look forward to what you have to say. So, and everybody, if you would mute so that we can all hear Jennifer. Thank you.
Ladies, it's despite the circumstances, it's an honor to be here, to be in your presence. Thank you, Debbie. I'm grateful for my friend Jessica for connecting us. My sincere condolences. I know that this is not easy, but allowing me to present and share my testimony and provide insight and information, it may, by giving you that information, it should help save another life. And that's what this is doing. This network meeting, this opportunity is bringing awareness to domestic violence. I wish that somebody would have poured into me as a young girl about these social ills. So I'll just explain that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will be in a severe physical abusive relationship in their lifetime. So when you look at our numbers here, there's 13 of us. I know that I am not the only one that has experienced domestic violence in some form or fashion. And domestic violence, it's a power and control. And it comes that one person has over another. And it can come in the form of not just physical, but sexual, financial, medical, intimidation, emotional, mental. It just comes in so many forms. And many people, they look for the scars or the bruises, but a lot of times your abusers, they're so cunning and narcissistic that a lot of the abuse is hidden. It's not always the scars, it's not always the bruises that you'll see. So I grew up in York, Pennsylvania, in poverty. My parents, they did the best for me that they could at the time, but they were very dysfunctional. When I was growing up, being dark-skinned with full lips was not considered attractive. And I began to have low self-esteem. I really didn't have anyone to truly nurture and guide me and to help me see beyond the external. So it was common, unfortunately, for other ethnicities to point out these features that I became uncomfortable about. My dark skin, my full lips, my kinky hair. But when I was in high school, which is a very important age group when you're really coming into your own, I had 3 African American boys who made me their target every day in this class, picking on those very features that I became uncomfortable about. And I couldn't understand, my fragile mind couldn't understand, I look like them. And so I'm like, if Caucasians and Hispanics and Asians, if they think that I'm unattractive, and now I have boys that have the same features as me, I could look like their mother, and they're picking on those very same features, then I must be the ugliest thing walking the face of the earth. So I needed to paint that background story that low self-esteem is the pathway to self-destruction. And looking for love and acceptance, I didn't realize that my body was a temple. And so I felt susceptible to boys and men as I grew older. They were looking to get their desires met, the sexual desires met, but I was looking for that love and acceptance. So I get asked often as I share my testimony, why did you stay, or how did you get into this relationship? And I tell them that the abuser, they don't have a neon blinking sign across their head that says, hey, I just whipped up on my last 5 girlfriends. You're going to be number 6. How about that date? Do you want to go to the movies and see Sleeping with the Enemy? It's not that blatant. It's not like that. It would be great if they did have a sign across their chest or on their forehead that says, hey, I'm a narcissist. I'll use my charismatic ways to manipulate you and gaslight you and everything else. So I found myself in very horrible, poor relationships because of my low self-esteem. But when I went into the military, I had to compartmentalize. So like I mentioned in our earlier, my first 4 years, I detected, localized, and tracked enemy ships and submarines. That was my first job in the military. And then I transitioned to where I did that job, but in airplanes. It's called Naval Air Crewman. I'm not sure if many of you have ever heard of Naval Air Crew, but it's kind of like it's an elite group, a step below your Navy SEALs. A lot of activity, running and swimming and learning to survive off of the land. I've also I was an in-flight technician. So I fixed the electronic equipment in the plane. So I flew with your pilots and navigators and the whole crew. Well, what I didn't realize when I graduated the school in Pensacola in 1995, that I was extremely rare, that I was the first African-American female to graduate in probably about 10 years. When I got to my aviation squadrons, I experienced the isolation, the career manipulation, the bullying, because I was so rare. Matter of fact, in my 15-year stint of being a Naval Air Crew, I was the first in 3 Navy squadrons because of my skin color and my gender. In addition, during that 15 years, I flew combat missions in 3 different wars: Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Again, there was always the threat of having my plane shot down or being captured by the enemy and being exposed to propaganda, being used for their propaganda. I knew that if I was ever captured, that number 1, I would die. I also carried a New Gideon Testament Bible in my flight suit, and that professed that I was a Christian. And often I was the only female in the airplane and the only minority in the airplane. And that they would use me to come after my colleagues, my male colleagues. I was in an abusive relationship for 5.5 years. So when men and women, because the statistics are so high, when someone's in an abusive relationship, they may not just be in that situation. They may have other things going on as well. And so I explained to people that I was facing a war on 3 different fronts. I was facing a war with someone personally who professed that they loved me. I was also facing a war of workplace bullying because I couldn't fit in where I was trying to. I stood out because of my skin color and my gender, and I was so rare. And then I was facing a war literally around the country. And I compartmentalized. But with my abuser, I experienced it in the military. It was service member on service member, which gives a whole different light because many people don't realize that our service members, we suffer in silence, especially as women, because we're supposed to be strong and show no weakness, especially in the industry that is filled with men, and they already don't want us there. And with my relationship, it happened so gradually. There were signs in the very beginning where he would make snide comments about my friends and their body parts and things like that. But I just brush that off and ha, ha, ha. But within the first 6 months, because we were seeing each other exclusively, my menstrual cycle was late. And I had my apartment. He was coming over one night. And I was like, you know what? I need to tell him the possibility that I could be pregnant. And when I told him, without warning, he hauled off and punched me in my stomach. I gasped for air. I was shocked. I ran up the stairs, and as I'm running up the stairs, I told him to using expletives, to get out. And he's now crying, he leaves. But as women, I want to know, I want answers. Why did you do what you did? So now we're arguing in the street and he's crying and I don't know. And, just everything came at him all at once. And because of the tears and the babies, I'm sorry, I invited him back into the apartment. And unknowingly, because I didn't know all the information about domestic violence, we had makeup sex. And that completed the 3-phase cycle of domestic violence. The 3-phase cycle is the escalation, the trigger, maybe having a bad day at work. Then the next phase is the actual abuse, where they're taking their anger and their frustration out on you. Or you didn't make my breakfast the way I wanted, and you have a hot plate of eggs flying at your head. And then the third part of that cycle is the honeymoon phase. And that's where the I love you, I'm sorry, the makeup sex, bringing flowers, and acting nice. And in this relationship, number one, it happened so gradually, but I didn't recognize a pattern. It wasn't like on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, he's getting drunk, and that's when I would experience the abuse, or on Monday and Wednesday or something like that. It could be weeks, it could be months before the next episode. And the physical wasn't always there. It was more emotional and mental and even financial. We both like casinos. We both like to gamble. And that became my coping mechanism of zoning out while he's in one location of the casino. I'm in another, and I could zone out on those wheels spinning and spend hours. Number one, casinos don't have clocks or windows, and that's designed on purpose. And I could just lose track of time and zone out of what I'm truly experiencing. I recall the random slaps across the face, not provoked. I remember definitely the name calling. You know, people say that sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That's a lie. Those bruises, those scars, they heal. But that heart is so fragile and hard to repair. I knew as the relationship was going on that this could be love. But I didn't report him. I didn't call the police because if you recall from me telling you in the beginning, I was also facing workplace bullying. How can I go to my male supervisors and explain to them that I'm experiencing abuse personally when they're doing the same thing to me, but in a different way? So again, we suffer in silence. I also had a very top secret clearance. I didn't want that to be jeopardized. I didn't also want my workplace to know about his financial abuse and me having to increase my credit card limits and everything else because we were playing house. We rented a house and we weren't married. Yes, we were seeing each other exclusively at that particular time, but we weren't married. We were playing house. So there were so many things that I wish I could turn back the hands of time and do differently, but that's my story. That's my chapter. But it's not a period. It's a comma because it goes on. Towards the end, I suspected him of cheating. And if it wasn't me suspecting him of cheating, I probably would still have been in the relationship to this day. Sometimes as women or human beings, we can be loyal to a fault. And I truly believe that God had to allow this situation to manifest of him finding another, because that was like pouring salt on my wound. Number one, that you're going to mistreat me, but now you're going to bring your attention to somebody else when I so deserve that. I stuck with you for 5.5 years. How could you? But see, he didn't want to come out and say, hey, I'm with somebody else. He would make fun of me even more. Look at you. Look at your hair. Look at your teeth, your crooked teeth. And then to have someone stare you in the face and say, damn, you're ugly. Cut to the core. But again, you're not ready to leave. You just wanted to stop. And so I prayed, and I love Mary J. Blige, you know, her music, and I would listen to her music and cry myself to sleep, and he's sleeping soundly. And it got to a point where he wouldn't even ask me, baby, what's wrong? And it got to the point where I thought about taking the pillow and just putting it over his head. But I'm like, Jennifer, you're better than that. And I knew that I had to figure out a plan to leave. Mind you, I had a mask on. No one knew. No one knew, because in public, I wore that smile. I wanted them to see what I wanted them to see. For fear of shame and guilt and being judged. Here I'm flying combat missions and breaking barriers and stereotypes and discriminations. How in the world did I find myself in this situation? Because when I was growing up, and I don't know if you ladies remember the talk show host Ricky Lake, Do y'all remember Ricky Lake? I remember coming home from high school and watching her show and seeing the dysfunctional relationships, and as they're going at it, and I was talking to the TV, girl, don't let him put his hands on you. I'm talking to the TV. And I'm like, I'm black, I'm strong, and I'm never going to let nobody put their hands on me. Lo and behold, I was that person. How did it happen? And it was that low self-esteem that I suppressed and covered up with everything else. Praise the Lord, I was able to get out of that relationship. And before I move on, when he punched me in my stomach, later on my menstrual cycle did come. So praise the Lord, I wasn't pregnant. That's a question I get asked, but as I'm telling my story, I'm like, I don't want to leave you ladies hanging. When I got out of that relationship, I found out about the statistics of domestic violence and what it truly is, the definition of it and the power and control. And I felt relieved because I was like, wow, I thought I was the only one. And I wasn't. And that's when I decided that I was going to write my book. So I am a published author. I wrote Tomorrow My Sunshine Will Come, Memoirs of Women Who Survived Domestic Violence. And initially when I retired in 2013, it was just supposed to be a memoir of my story. But as I put it out there in the atmosphere that I was writing this book and what the topic was about, I had a lot of women that I was stationed with or knew in the military that said, me too. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm not alone. And these were enlisted and officer women. And so I invited them to, it wasn't an anthology. They shared their story with me, and many were sharing their story for the very first time. And that began their healing process. But as I was going through my journey, I discovered a 3-phase process in my journey to healing, finding purpose from the pain. First, I had to acknowledge what I experienced. Because so often we suppress things and we suppress and we suppress, and we don't want to acknowledge. And no, it didn't happen. But we're only kidding ourselves because it comes out in other ways where we're not able to focus. We come across angry, bitter, and everything else. So I had to acknowledge what I've been through. Next, I had to restore my broken soul. To be beaten down so bad and to have someone who professed that they loved you to look you in the face with an unworldly look to say, damn, you're ugly. And how I restored my broken soul was affirmations, looking myself in the mirror and saying, Jennifer, you are beautiful. Jennifer, you are worthy. Jennifer, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And then the toughest part, the last phase for me, was forgiveness. It took a while. And how I got to forgiveness is he had went on with his life, married someone else, and I had went on with my life. But I wasn't quite content because I would comb social media looking for pictures of him. I wanted some type of proof if he was fat and bloated, if he was miserable. I tell you no lie, it's the truth. Yes, I wanted him to hurt as much as I was still hurting. And then when I couldn't find those pictures, I then was typing his name in Google and locations that I thought maybe where he might have settled and looking in obituaries. Was he dead? I wanted to know, was he dead? Just some type of confirmation, just to know I wanted him to hurt as much as I was hurting. And then it dawned on me, Jennifer, you're not even with that fool, and you're still giving him control over your mind and over your thoughts. You're giving him too much energy, and you're not even together. And that's when I put it in my mind and my heart, and I prayed, God, help me forgive myself, which is so hard to do because we wrestle with guilt and shame. How did I end up here? And then to help me to forgive him. And I didn't reach out to him and say, hey, you crazy knucklehead, and shake his hand and say, you know what, you did me wrong, but I forgive you. No, I didn't do that. I just put it in my heart, my mind to do so. And when I did, it was like a release, a weight came off of my shoulders. And then I also forgave my parents and anyone I held responsible. Why didn't you give me the tools to navigate this cruel world and to see that not everybody has my best interests? So once I forgave, that's how I found purpose from the pain. But I realized through that journey that I went from victim to survivor and then thriver. And there is a difference between a survivor and a thriver. A survivor can physically get out of the relationship but still be held captive mentally and emotionally. And that's what I have been in for so long. But a thriver will find purpose from the pain and move forward. And so I share my testimony with you to give you some insight, but also some inspiration of how does a person find themselves in these relationships and why do they stay? Because we people please, or we want to fix it. Us women, we want to fix it. We want to make it better. And we figure if we love harder and we love stronger, that maybe, just maybe, he'll love me the way that I want and deserve. But truth be told, that love that I was looking for, it needed to start with me. To love myself inside and out, flaws and all, dark skin, full lips, kinky hair, quirky laugh, everything that God has made me to be, I needed to love it unconditionally. So that's how I transitioned. And now I'm in an amazing marriage. I am proof that you can have unconditional true love after having some horrible relationships. I had to kiss a lot of frogs to find my prince. My husband and I, we've been married for 13 years and it's been amazing. But I had to work on myself and get to this point so that I wouldn't bring my baggage into the relationship with him. And now we have a 9.5-year-old son. And oh gosh, he takes advantage of me and my husband. We're old and slow. I'm a late bloomer. I had my son went on my last tour of shore duty. But I knew that my son needed to have a healthy mom. And I didn't want to put my hurt and pain that was undealt with on him. And so as ladies, I share this because you are grandparents, you're mothers, and we're creating a legacy, just like you mentioned, of Vicky. And she sounds like an amazing, beautiful woman. It's about that legacy. We can stay in the hurt and pain, or we can find purpose from it and inspire the world, and just know that it doesn't end, that we have to keep on moving. And that purpose, walk it out boldly. I want you to know that whatever you're going through, it doesn't have to be permanent. Or if you know someone who's going through an abusive relationship, these are some tips that I would share with you. Number one, be gentle. Please don't be judgmental. Don't judge them. It takes a victim 6 to 8 times to get out of the relationship. And many times they're going through financial and economical abuse, where the abuser will take their money and they feel trapped. Where do you go? You have no money. And especially if you have children, you're looking out for their benefit as well. And then if you've been threatened, if you leave me, I will kill you. So most victims will stay because they figure they can handle the black eyes and the bruises, and that they want to stay alive just for the sake of their children. Also, by bringing awareness and letting them know that you're there to listen, and that there is a way out. And so you give them resources, like if you're in the Fort Walton Beach area, the Shelter House, which is a domestic violence and sexual assault shelter. And their number, if you don't know already, is 850-243-1201. Also, you can point them to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and that's 1-800-799-7233. Now, I'll tell you that COVID-19 has created the perfect storm. That is not the only pandemic, because we're dealing with domestic violence as a pandemic. Human trafficking is a pandemic. There's so many pandemics that are not being talked about in the media because we are being distracted and we are being muzzled. So yes, COVID-19 is not the only pandemic. So when you're sheltered in place, how does a victim leave? Where do they go? You fear if you go to a shelter, number one, they're probably already full. But if you go, you risk contracting the virus. So you stay. Also, how do you call for help if the abuser is right there? So the National Domestic Violence Hotline, they also have a text. If you text LOVE IS, LOVEIS, to the number 22522, that's a means of starting a chat through the text messaging. And I can repeat these numbers and text messages as you wish. But again, is also help the victim create a safety plan. I get contacted 2 to 3 times a week because I have a for-profit, which is Inspirationally Speaking, LLC, where I'm a published author and motivational speaker. And then Unstoppable You Ministries is a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and we help communities around the country. We provide emergency services. We provide training and supportive resources to individuals and families affected by domestic violence, human trafficking, and homelessness. And many times individuals experience all three. So I get contacted often. And one of the main things that I help people do to support the victim is create a safety plan. And that safety plan may be as simple as creating a code word that only the victim and the planner know, because you can't just trust anybody. So that code word could be cheeseburger. So if you get a text or a phone call in the middle of the night from your friend or loved one that you suspect is being abused, and they're like, man, I really could go for a cheeseburger right now. That's your cue to call 911. Okay? Also, set up a safety deposit box, or encourage them to stash some money away, or you stash money away for them so they can get that bus ticket to get out of town quickly. Also, to make copies of all their important paperwork, their driver's license, their birth certificates, anything and everything that they would need to start over again, to put these things in a Ziploc bag. They can bury it in the yard. They can give it to you for safekeeping. But this is a safety plan to where if they need to make an escape right away, they have what they need to start life over again. And last but not least, and there's so many things that are involved in a safety plan, but clothing, undergarments, clothing that they can put away for safekeeping, or a getaway bag. I want to be able to open it up to questions from Debbie. Obviously, you guide this. You let me know what you want in the agenda for here. But there's so many myths, and there's so many reasons why people stay. And again, it's the abuse. Unfortunately, Vicki probably experienced that abuse throughout those couple of months, that it wasn't just that one incident. Abusers, it just ramps up. And you have to just be patient and be gentle with them, and just know that you love them and that they are beautiful and worthy and worth living.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was just amazing. And there's so much in there that you gave here. And it's just blows me away. And actually, I've been through a lot of tragedy and things different in my life. And I see a lot of similarities. And it's interesting, my dad was a Gideon. When you mentioned having the little Gideon
Wow.
rifles, so he gave them out and whatnot. And so that's such an important part. And your story really shows that God made us, like you were talking about, amazing, that as human beings, we can go through horrible things and we can be resilient and we can live beautiful lives. And one of the things you talked about is that it's about thinking. And I think of like rationalization, like you're rationalizing things, and that's really rationing lies to our minds. And so, it's like we can be in a mental prison. And so I think that was, you really kind of showed the whole gamut of everything of, it's not just physical, it's all these things, and, and then how to help. And so I want to open it up. I don't know if people have questions or not, but open it up and ask some questions.
And you can ask me anything. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Miss Nancy.
One of the things that I find remarkable about your story is so many times women just repeat the process and keep on getting into relationship after relationship after relationship. And like you mentioned, bring that baggage in. Was there something, what allowed you to stop that process and beat those statistics and realize that you wasn't going to do that?
I had to realize the root was low self-esteem, and it was going to carry me right down a destructive path. Actually, it did throughout my childhood, teenage years, young adult life, was that low self-esteem. And that I was loyal to a fault because I so wanted the person to change. And again, like I said, as women, we want to change everybody, you know, to fit our mold. But in fact, the only person we control is us. And I had to get that reality. And I think once I got out of it, I did not want to experience that again. It was just my heart, you know, to dedicate 5.5 years to somebody and they tear you down. And I recall trying to study for an exam, you know, to get up into the next rank. And he turned the lights off on me. So now I'm studying for the exam with the sunlight coming through the blinds, you know, just things like that. So I just knew once I got out of it, I didn't want to experience that again. And I had to work on me. I had to love me. Thank you for your question, Miss Nancy.
Jennifer, your story is so riveting. Like, I just am so amazed that you have such courage to share with us. So thank you. It really touched me. Yeah. I was wondering, look, what advice do you have for women who are, you know, dating online? You know, what are some precautions they should be making when they're starting in that relationship? Because now more and more relationships are moving online.
Yes, which is definitely scary. When the narcissistic, people who are narcissistic, that is very hard for them to hide. You know, my ex-boyfriend, he had the Napoleon complex. He was short in stature. And so he had to come off with this big bravado. So when people are always talking about the material things or what they can do, instead of, you know, who they really are, you know, emotionally and mentally. Also, if the controlling, you know, I just want you all for myself, and moving too fast with, you know, I want to date you exclusively and you only known them for like a day or a week or something like that. Where they're stalking through social media. And if you make a comment, say a male makes a comment to your post, now they're questioning, well, who's that? So there are nuances that abusers, those red flags, we just have to pay attention. But then they always try to put the best foot forward, so you may not see it completely, but it's taking those baby steps and having boundaries. That's what I would recommend for any woman or man. Create healthy boundaries and move slow. Hopefully that answered your question, Miss Olivia, is that, yeah, online dating, just really pay attention. They'll, the subtleties of trying to isolate or stalking on social media.
I was watching a Netflix, it was based on a true story, Dirty John. Did you ever hear about that one on Netflix?
No, with a 9.5-year-old, I watch a lot of Paw Patrol and and Peppa Pig.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. It was probably aired a couple months ago, but it's about a woman in California that did online dating and then got trapped by this man who pretended to be someone he was not. And yeah, I was shocked to see like that was going on, and now like to see even locally, you know, this murder had happened.
Yeah, we just have to be very mindful. Yeah, just once the first hit happens, it's not going to stop just there.
And isn't it true, Jennifer, that it's not always the physical abuse, but the control and
Right.
all of that? Having had a daughter who escaped a very volatile narcissistic psychopath, who never physically abused her, but totally controlled her financially, emotionally, and mentally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually got contacted by a woman from a church in my Southern Maryland area. Her church member explained that she was in an abusive relationship and wanted to leave, but didn't know what to do, and expressed that the abuser was trying to control her because she has lupus. He threatened to take her medication, which she needs to live. And, you know, if you leave me, you'll regret it for the rest of your life, but also I'll take your medication. So that's medical abuse. And so many people are controlled by that. I'll also give you this quick story. I just graduated with my master's in social work in May. And I did an internship at a crisis intervention center. And I will tell you, this is how I know that I'm healed. The crisis intervention center, they had an abuser intervention program. And I volunteered to sit with the director who was facilitating this class with these abusers. And so I'm in a room with about 20 to 22 men who have been court ordered to attend this program because of their violent nature, second-degree assault, and so on. But I didn't flinch. I actually learned a lot about abusers' thought process and how they get into being an abuser. But anyhow, the facilitator, she shared with me how she had one psychopath in the program where he nonchalantly shared how his wife would get deathly ill of peppers. So one day he wanted her to do something. And she talked back to him and was like, no, she wasn't going to do it. She wasn't listening. So when she left for work that day, he spent all day with a big, huge pot cooking peppers to where it permeated throughout the home. When she came through the door, she went into where she wasn't able to breathe and gasping, and she fell on the floor. She had an EpiPen because she was deathly allergic to peppers. And he had the EpiPen and he stood over her, kicking her, calling her names and saying, you know, you're not going to disrespect me anymore, and just calling her foul language and everything else. And this woman is gasping for air, about to die. And she, just shook her head that she would comply and wouldn't and would do what he asked her to. So eventually they were able to, she was able to leave him, get far away from him, but he still found her. This psychopath, she had a car where you can pull the handle. He actually put a pepper in between the handle. So when she reached for the handle, she touched the pepper. But learning from that previous situation, she had the EpiPen on her and was able to give herself that shot so she could continue to live. But people have that sadistic mindset of that power and control. So it's just not always physical. It's the medical, it's the mental, emotional, the gaslighting, where you will put your car keys in a place, up on the mantle. And the abuser, they'll take it and they'll put it in the refrigerator. So as you're trying to leave, you're looking for your keys and you find them in the refrigerator. How did they get there? And you crazy so-and-so, you put them in there. So they'll have you think that you're crazy. So yeah, it's, to go on and on.
Hi, Jennifer.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, to Olivia, I watched Dirty John. I've watched it. It's really very interesting. But I was one of the lucky ones, and I say that because I was raised in a family who my aunt was physically abused most of her life with her husband, to the point that he killed her at some point. I also had a woman who I never knew, but we lived in a very small community, and her husband was abusive to her until one day she couldn't take it anymore, and he went to sleep and she set him on fire.
Whoa.
Yeah, she didn't go to jail because everybody knew that he was abusing her, but nobody did anything. So as I grew, and I was young, I was like 9, 10 years old. As I grew up, I knew in the back of my mind that I was never going to let a man do that to me. And the first man that hit me, he was 6 feet tall. I'm only 5 feet. He was 6 feet tall. I looked up at him and I said, "Are you staying tonight?" And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because I don't suggest you do that." And he just looked at me and he laughed. He was like, "Huh, I got you. You ain't got, you know." And I looked at him. I said, "I'm being serious. I don't recommend you stay." And he said, "Well, I might stay. I'll think about it." And I said, "Okay." I said, "But when you don't wake up, you'll know why. Because I'm not going to stand here and let you abuse me." So
Amen.
I'm one of the lucky ones. I never had to go through that, but I have seen people go through it, and my heart goes out to them. But like you said, you can't tell people that he's not good for you or that he's abusing you. You can't, they don't want to hear it.
That's right.
And so it's very difficult to help your friends. But my heart goes out to you because I can imagine because of what I saw my aunt go through.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The abuser, they cunningly isolate the victim from any support system they could, family, friends, and they don't like me and I don't want you being around them and everything else. My ex-boyfriend, his behavior when he was drinking caused me to isolate myself because of it's shameful seeing this guy in such a drunken state and the things that he was saying and do. So yeah, it's that isolation that is one of the forms. And I think this is so important, and I'm grateful that you all are having this conversation, bringing awareness to domestic violence, and then to be able to share, grab my book or watch the stories, the movies that are out there, the documentaries. Because of my elite training in the Navy as a naval air crewman, I was better prepared to be a prisoner of war than to deal with domestic violence. I mean, let that sink in, and that's a very profound statement. I was able to, if a propaganda video was being done on me, I could communicate, I could code tap, I could swim a mile in 68 minutes. I knew how to get rescue and just everything, because it was such an elite group and the training we went through. But nobody hardly talked about domestic violence. And because it was so gradual, it wasn't something that I realized, and I held on to those babies. I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Renee, for asking the question and sharing.
I have a question. It kind of triggers off of what Nancy Gaskins said.
Okay.
My question is, I know you said that the first thing is acknowledgement, but I was curious as to what was your first step to create your own self-love. I know that's kind of specific.
Right. I had to. I didn't like what I had experienced. I had to surrender. I'm like, something had to change. I couldn't, and what I realized, I had so many poor relationships even leading up into that abusive relationship that when I was a common denominator. That was the first key of self-awareness, is realizing I'm getting the same results from different men, and I'm the common denominator. So at some point, I had to deal with me. And when I writing the book and meditating and figuring out where did I go wrong, I had to get to the root of it. And that was from my childhood, growing up in a dysfunctional home and realizing that I inherited a generational curse. I inherit a generational curse, and things were not taught. You know, when you see a little boy grab a little girl's hair or knock her books out her hands, and we'll make the excuse, baby, that's a love tap. He just likes you. Now we are confusing that young little girl that this is what love looks like by being abusive. And when we don't correct or discipline that little boy, we are telling him it's okay to mistreat this little girl. So again, it starts in our childhood. And for me, it started in my childhood and the environment that I grew up in, and that these things were not discussed, and the teen dating violence and everything else. So I had to see myself as the common denominator, and that enough was enough.
And then what was your actual first step after you realized that? How did you, I'm probably not clear, but what did you actually do?
Like once I got out of the relationship,
to help, yeah.
I had to spend time with myself. I had to like quarantine myself, not get in any type of relationship. I had to, number one, see that I wasn't alone. Because Satan will use shame and guilt to trap us into repeating poor behaviors. So I had to, I had to do the hard work. That was acknowledging, that was restoring, and ultimately forgiving. I had to tell myself that I was worthy. I had to build myself back up. Those were my very next steps after leaving the relationship. It's like, okay, kind of doing like a SWOT analysis. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? What are my threats? You can do that on a personal level as well, not just professionally. So I knew I had potential. I knew I was an intelligent woman. So I'm like, okay, if I don't want to repeat the pattern, I have to figure out where the links were broken, where's going on. So I had to reevaluate. I don't know if that helps or not.
Yes, that does. And I mean, just the fact of everything you accomplished in your military career, okay, just to accomplish your you know, what you are doing, you would have thought, but it didn't, right?
Yes,
that would have been enough.
Yes.
But it wasn't. Because I listen to your story, and it's like, I am in such admiration of you being out there doing all those survival skill stuff, okay? Because I know I didn't go through it, but I know people that have, okay? And it is not an easy accomplishment for anybody, man or woman. So I really admire you for that. And then, but that wasn't quite enough, was it?
No, ma'am. And I will tell you this, I think because I was flying combat missions in wars, and I was literally fighting for my career because of, you know, the good old boys, they didn't want me there. They were trying to sabotage and isolate me. I guess I put my career as precedent over my personal life. Everything had a nice little compartment. So when I'm at work, I'm focusing on staying alive, keeping my career, because I'm trying to make it to retirement and everything else. This relationship, I'm holding on to the good times. I'm holding on to the trips we made and the fun times, the laughter. That's what victims are holding on to. And that's why they stay, because they're looking forward to that coming back again.
And not
So
having to be alone.
Absolutely. I was compartmentalizing.
And it really
Thank you.
shows you too how we can be very accomplished as women, and yet, you know, like in the business and the work world, and yet personally be something entirely different. And I have a question. My good friend Lori Smith here, she's not in a place where she can unmute, but
Okay.
she is the owner and publisher of Destined Life and Bay Life. Boutique publication. They shared, you know, stories of good news. She would like you to write a story, you know, and about those measures that women can take. And so,
Yes, ma'am.
you'd like to do, okay, I will connect you to, and
Okay.
it's just, you know, I'm just so thankful for that. And that she's just, it's a good local publication. So
You got it.
yeah.
You got it.
I just want to say, it's almost 7 o'clock. We said we would end then, but depending, I don't know if people, no, you're fine. If people want to continue, we can. I'll just leave it up to you. Or is this good? And I realized I didn't stop the recording on the questions. However, I think the questions were amazing. And I think that was like a good part of it. But, you know, if anybody has anything, I think I'll stop the recording right now. And I just want to thank you so much. We'll stay on here for a minute. I just want to thank you so much, Jennifer. We got so much out of this, and just incredible. So let me stop the recording
Oh,
here.
there's a question.
Yeah.
There's 2 questions, I think.
Okay.
Hey, girl, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, Pam. Okay.
Hey, yeah, and I apologize. I didn't get to hear all your speech. My boys had drum lessons and karate. In fact, they're almost done, so I better talk fast. Okay, so I just wanted to say that I was in, oh my gosh, I married a very abusive, you know, person the first time, and that's why I'm together with some.
Just finished your master's, and one of the things that I was wondering if this is where maybe Nancy was going was, were you able to go get some counseling and all of that? Because I know in the military, because I'm the spouse of a retired military person, back in the day, if you did anything of the sort, that could be a blotch on your record. And so a lot of people do not go get the help that they need because of that. And so I was curious, one, did you find that to be, I'm not saying you an issue, but were you able to go get some help outside that, or maybe afterwards? And then I'm curious what you plan on using. I'm a former dean and a college professor, so I'm curious to see how in your ministry and all of that, how you're going to use this degree, or was it just to help you doing what you're doing now?
Great questions, Miss Nancy. So I eventually, due to the workplace bullying and everything that I've experienced throughout my career, it was fruitful, but wasn't without its challenges. My anxiety, depression led me to where I needed to get therapy. Many things came out where I had to get to the root of, why do I think the way I think? Why do I act? You know, these things are learned. You know, it all starts in the home. So yes, eventually I did get therapy, but I never went to like Fleet and Family Support Center or any of those things, because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. When we received the once a year training awareness, the advocates spoke as if the support or services were only for the spouse or the significant other. I didn't think as a service member, number one, that I was in one or would need the services, or that I was entitled to it. So that created, again, that suffering in silence, for fear of being judged and everything else, the consequences that may come from it. This master's is my 4th degree, my 2nd master's. this social work degree will, I plan on doing therapy under my nonprofit organization. I got to get my hours and work under an approved social, licensed social worker. But that is the goal, is to further provide services under my nonprofit organization. In addition, it opens up other doors for my motivational speaking. So for example, I got hired to speak by a hospital, a well-known hospital in my hometown. They have a trauma-informed symposium. It was going to be this October, but they have to push it to 2021 because of COVID. They hired me, they gave me what I asked for, my fee. And all I'm doing is sharing my story, and the audience is doctors and nurses, because so often they see the same victims coming through their door, and they, from an educational, they can't understand, why is this person constantly coming through my door? Why don't they leave? So I will be sharing my story and offering a different perspective so that they can provide better care and everything else. So these degrees have opened up doors for me from the motivational speaking side as well.
And Jennifer, you know what? I want you to, so if people want more of you, how can they get in touch with you? You know, what about your book? Just tell us about that.
Please contact me. My phone number is area code 410-449-2173. Just identify, it goes right to my cell phone. Just text me, say, hey, this is so-and-so, we met, just jog my memory. And I love connecting. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, you Google Jennifer Foxworthy, I come up all over the place. And I have 2 accounts because I have the for-profit and a nonprofit. I have websites, inspirationallyspeaking.com and unstoppablehuministriesinc.org. But again, if you just Google Jennifer Foxworthy, you see my bright, bubbly face, you know you got the right person. You can reach me through my website. You can even contact Miss Nancy or Miss Debbie, Nancy, and they can link you. My book is Tomorrow, My Sunshine Will Come, Memoirs of Women Who Survived Domestic Violence. It is available on paperback. It's available on Kindle through Amazon. If you go to my website, inspirationallyspeaking.com, you can purchase the book. I'll give you a personal autograph and ship it directly to you. Or you can go through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, any online distributor. But I guarantee you that book will provide more insight and inspiration to domestic violence. I have therapists that use the books for their clients. Military domestic violence advocates have ordered a book. Matter of fact, the month of August, I have a book club that's using my book. So if you know of any other book clubs, please recommend it. I have states attorneys that use the book for their clients. So it has made a tremendous difference, and I'm grateful to have survived, thrived, to share this story.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for speaking at Emerald Coast Women in Business. And this was a perfect time for that. So thank you.